There's a look at St. Charles Street as we're going to bring you more video and just general. We got more video coming in as we speak, and I reiterate. Also, we're going to we invite anybody who's an elected official or who is running for office. And you may say, well, why do you want them, the ones that are running for office? Well, because obviously they have a concern for the parish, because they wouldn't be running if they didn't. And they're out and about while they're campaigning. They're getting a first-hand look at what flooding is all about in this area. So we want their input, and in fairness to everybody, because it's an election year, let them come on and talk about what they're seeing. So in a little bit, we'll get to that. Let's take some phone calls in the meantime, and let's talk to the public. HTV, welcome to the program. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to find out who I must talk to, because my water never used to come. I live on Trimper's Road.
Okay.
And my water never used to stay in the back of my property. But Mr. Richard up from me on Trimper's Road, he stopped it up to make him a crawfish pond. I got a canal that run there, you see.
Right.
And down from there, it's Guinea, I don't know his last name, by the big trees, past the Indian Mountain. He stopped it up, And then the one that has cattle, I forgot, my sister-in-law just told me his name.
I'll try to answer your question. Get Jay to go to some of the camera shots, and we're going to move some people on, but that's St. Charles Street. But, the biggest part of everything is that when people sort of gerrymander their own property to do different things, it can certainly affect you and your drainage and what happens. So we always urge everybody, we've been doing it for years, that if you're going to fix your property to do something, if you're going to have a crawfish pond, if you're going to do anything with your property, please consider the parish as a whole and what you're doing to your neighbors and all. Because if that water is not running off and you're blocking your neighbor from draining, you're really not doing anybody any favors. And I think that's probably what you're talking about.
Right. It stays in my backyard and everybody in between. Yeah. And I've been telling everybody, well, I was going to go see who to contact, but I don't know. You see, everybody I talk to, nobody know nothing, So while I saw you on the phone number, I told my sister-in-law I was going to call,
Yeah, well, we appreciate you calling, but, I mean, if you live in that area, you've been through this before. You've been through it a lot of times before. So, I mean, it's aggravating. It certainly is not what you want to be going through on a Sunday morning, but I promise you're going to get through it. And I know a lot of problems can be addressed, but let me ask you, have you ever thought about just going sit down with your neighbor and say, look, you're killing me over here, fix that drainage?
I did, don't worry. I'm a woman that speaks my mind. I'm not afraid, but I told them, but they didn't care. I mean, they did what they wanted to.
Yep, and that's some of the problem. Some people are stubborn. They don't want to budge.
Right, but I also told them I was going to contact someone, but I put up with it, I don't have to deal with it just storm time or when the tide is high, but it ought to have a law against that the canal run over and run into our yard, and nobody want to call, they're afraid you'll bite them.
Yeah, no, I understand, and it's normally we find out about it when there's a storm. That's normally when you find out that you're sort of playing behind the 8 ball here. So I feel for you, but when this is all over, what I would suggest you do is bring it up to the parish council, go to the meeting, and at least put it on public record so that you might be able to get, look, I think if you approach Mr. Claude with Terrebonne Parish, he has people involved in those arenas, and I know he would listen to you and at least send somebody out there to look at that whole situation.
Well, yeah, I hope he'd come today for sure.
Well, why don't you do that and just make sure once the water drains that you don't get complacent and not speak your mind, because the next time another one comes around, the same thing's going to happen.
Yeah, right, yeah. And when I tell other people from there to there, down the bar, they're going to do something, they don't want to do something. I said, well, look, I'm 71 years old now, so I said, well, I'm going.
Oh, we just lost her. Okay.
I got some updates,
All
Martin.
right, go ahead, and we have Brett Allain, who is a candidate for that Senate race, and of course, he knows a lot about the farm issues too in the sugar cane. We'll get to him in a second. Brett, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the invite.
All right, and Kyle, you have some updates?
Yeah, we have some streets collecting water. Prospect and Percy, it's a common location that floods. It's starting to take on water. Country Club Drive right now is impassable at the lower end. I know the parish is currently working on a plan to put a levee system around that area, which is going to alleviate that problem in the future. I did get a report of a tree that had fell near 311 in Barrow. Officers en route to check that out. The police chief sent me another message, once again encouraging the citizens right now to stay off the roadways. That we've seen so much rain that the root system from most trees, once the the ground gets this saturated, some trees may fall, and it's not because of a big wind event, just because of the saturation in the ground. And you don't want to be in that situation on the highway. So once again, please stay off the roadways and just listen for us to give you information and updates.
Yeah, we've seen the wind, and I mean, the wind is still steady right outside the studio. I'm looking at it. Brett, you've been driving in from St. Mary Parish area, and just out of church where a lot of us probably should be. But tell me what you're seeing out there, and you pass a lot of cane fields. Describe some of that for me.
Well, the sugar cane, probably 90% of the crop has been blown down already. So as far as a wind event, it got high enough to affect most of the sugar cane in the area. The stuff that is still standing, there's some varieties that's more resistant to winds, but mainly the heavier the cane, the more it is tends to go down. As you said, as the ground becomes saturated, the roots hold less, and the cane tends to go down. Yeah. Mostly, we see in a lot of flooding in cane fields also. The drainage is something that I know a good bit about. Yeah. And you'll see almost lakes out there in most cane fields. But the design criteria for sugar cane fields is only to take about 6 to maybe 8 inches of water off of a field in a 72-hour period.
Right.
And the drainage, so that's why you see a lot of lakes. It's probably why we're having a lot of problems in some of the older subdivisions also. That criteria is not near enough for homes and that type of developments that we see. A
lot of them were built on old sugarcane fields.
They were all built on old sugarcane fields. I mean, everything down here, all the high ridges were originally cleared because they were above 5-foot elevation or such. And when you converted them, if attention wasn't paid by either the parish or the developer to make them, to improve the drainage system. In fact, it's even worse than that. Our design criteria for a sugarcane field or pasture or any kind of field is such that we have what's called percolation, where the ground will actually absorb anywhere from 30 to 60%. We only design for 40% runoff in most fields, sometimes 50%, depending on the saturation. So whenever you add a rooftop or concrete, that goes to 100%.
Right.
So really, you could a cane field that was well drained, or before development was done, a field that was well drained, you start adding concrete and rooftops, and all of that goes out the window. Pretty soon you have lakes in people's front yards. So we have to in the future pay enough attention to the drainage aspect to where this doesn't happen. And in the older neighborhoods, we need to make sure that we run the numbers and make sure that people even have a chance of drainage and water not coming into their houses. I think that's once a parish or an entity has accepted a subdivision, I think it then becomes a responsibility of the parish or whatever entity to go ahead and improve the drainage system so that this type of rain events don't put water in people's houses.
Now you've been in the sugar cane business, and you talked to a lot of the people in that industry time and time again. This has got to kill them. This kind of weather, when that cane lays down, it sits over you for days and days and days, and then It's almost like oil on the oyster reefs and everywhere else. Same problem for them.
Oh, very much so. When the cane goes down like that, immediately, not only do you stop growth altogether and it uses its energy to try to right itself, which takes sugar content and growth out of it, but your mechanical losses in harvesting are at least 10 to 20%. So
Wait, now I just heard you cry. I learned something new. If a stalk lays down and is trying to correct itself, the sugar content goes down.
it will, depending on the type of year. It uses its energy. Energy is what the plant stores as sugar to overwinter itself. So as, you know, when the winter months come, sugar content goes up because it's using its energy for that purpose.
Right.
But right now, if a stalk lays